What up, YouTube? It's your boy Josh, aka Soul Brother. Welcome back to Soul Brothers Groove. Just want to shout out to all my soul brothers and sisters out there. Thank you for tuning into this channel. Today we have another great topic. We're switching gears a little bit this week. Last week I did my top 5 hip hop artists of the decade. This week I'm doing my top 5 R&B artists of the decade. And this one was a lot more challenging for me because I listen to R&B, more than hip hop. And there's so many talented R&B artists. It was so difficult putting this list together that I decided to do a top 5 male R&B artists of the decade, and then I'm gonna do a top 5 female artists, R&B artists of the decade. So be on the lookout for that next video. And yeah, making this list, man, was so challenging, man. There's been so many talented artists, in the last 10 years, especially. There's been so many that I really enjoy their music. So breaking it down to 5 was a difficult challenge for me. We're gonna start off with number 1, and number 1 for me, I feel like he deserves to be top 2 in anyone's list. Number 1, Anderson .Paak. Anderson .Paak. I feel like as an artist, as an R&B artist, he's so talented. This man has great vocals, and this man is a talented musician when it comes to playing different instruments. He plays the piano, he plays the drums. This man can do it all, literally. I remember listening to Anderson .Paak on Dr. Dre's Compton album. I remember listening to that track, and when I first listened to him, I thought, wow, this man has such a unique voice. And I was excited to listen to more of his music. At that time, I didn't really dive into his catalog because he didn't really have much from what I know. But I remember in college when he did drop Malibu back in 2014. I really enjoyed that album. Like when it first came out, it was such a great album from start to finish, and I just couldn't stop playing it. Like I remember I did not stop playing it the whole summer. I can just picture myself, driving in Cali with a convertible, like bumping his music. Like, man, the vibes in that album was just amazing from start to finish. And that album, has so many great tracks like Heart Don't Stand a Chance, Come Down, Am I Wrong? Like he had so many great tracks in that album that really gave me a completely different vibe and a breath of fresh air when it came to R&B. Just because at that time, I kind of was fading away from listening to R&B. So when I listened to that album, it just kind of brought me back into really, listening to more R&B. And what I really liked about that album, man, was just like the groove, how he used, a band for a lot of the production in that album. I feel like it was just so natural, so diverse with different types of R&B sounds in that album. Whether it's being groovy, being an upbeat song, or being a nice slow song like the interlude Waterfall. Yeah, man, just in Malibu in general, that man was just spitting. So the writing in that album was just amazing. So alongside with the writing and the production, man, the album is just so well put together. And as time went on, I love that album even more. I appreciate it so much for what it is. And it's funny because I remember hearing his tiny desk, seeing him perform, come down and play the drum while singing. I appreciated so much how talented this man was, because that's so difficult to do. Being able to play the drum and sing at the same time, man, this man was killing it in that Tiny Desk concert. After Malibu, I wasn't sure like how much better he could get. Like I was excited to see, what his upcoming album would sound like. And when he dropped Yes Lord, man, that album was so amazing. Like it brought me back. I feel like I was listening to an R&B album of the 80s, 70s. I just love that album so much. And one song that really stood out for me, and probably my favorite song of the album, was What More Can I Say? Which samples the notations and the just the production of that song alone. It just gives me like that Marvin Gaye feel. And what Anderson .Paak does so well that makes me love his music so much is that he mixes, the old school R&B with the new school R&B and just adds his own little flavor into it. So the way he did it in Yes Lord, just show me who he was as an artist, and what he was trying to what he's trying to accomplish as an artist. He really respects the genre and really honors the genre in a really great way. And then there's other tracks like this best one, man, like just so many tracks in the album. Like, I love the album from start to finish, actually. And the track like best one, for example, the bass in that song and the piano playing in the background, man, it's just so amazing to see. Just being able to listen to like the chord progressions and the bass playing alongside each other, and the way he's singing in that song as well, man. Yes Lord is just such a great second album. And man, when he dropped that album, after like really listening to that album, man, I realized this man is something special. After those two albums, I was just the biggest Anderson .Paak fan. Like, I was excited to hear all his albums, waiting to see what he was going to drop. And when he dropped Oxnard, I remember listening to the album, had a lot more of a hip hop influence. And I appreciate the album just because it shows how diverse he is as an artist as well. Like, this man, he could really rap if he wants to, and he does in tracks and some different tracks. And the production in that album, took a completely different turn. But I really love the production in the album. That's one thing I really loved. Although I didn't think the album was as good as his other previous two. I still thought the album was really good. And tracks like Six Summers, Tense with Kendrick. I love the vibe of that album for sure. But then when he dropped Ventura, which is his most recent project, man, it went back to what I really loved about Anderson .Paak. It's just the way he mixes the old R&B with the new, and he does it really well. Like in the track Make It Better with Smokey Robinson, where he's sampling Motown. So the fact that he pays his due respect to legends like Smokey Robinson, and you hear the influence in his music. You can tell this man grew up listening to legends like Marvin Gaye, James Brown. And man, just Ventura in general was just such an amazing track. He knows how to put an album together, and that's what I really love about his music. It's not only that he has great tracks, he has great projects. He puts them so well together from start to finish. You get a whole completely different vibe in each album. And he knows what features to bring in as well. He does that really well, and that's why I have to put Anderson .Paak at number one, just because the consistency and the quality of his music is just so impressive. Coming into the game and being able to do that is truly something special. And he's just talented overall. Like I said, great vocalist with a unique voice. I put him at my number one. Number two, man. Number two, the only reason I didn't put him at my number one is just because he just does not put music out consistently. Like, you just never know when you're gonna get a project from this man. But when you do get one, it's worth the wait for the most part. And number two has to be Frank Ocean. I feel like if you don't have Frank Ocean in your top two, top three, then your list is all messed up. So yeah, Frank Ocean, number two. And the thing about Frank Ocean, I remember listening to him back in high school. I remember when he dropped his two singles, Novocaine and Swim Good. And I just love the production in those two songs, those two singles, and how the bass of those tracks were so heavy, and how he had these catchy hooks. But besides the production and the hooks and the songs, I feel like his writing was incredible. And from that moment, I knew Frank Ocean was something special. And then when he showed up in Watch the Throne with Kanye and Jay-Z, man, this dude had two of my favorite hooks of all time, man. He and No Church in the Wild and Made in America, man, he killed No Church in the Wild, especially. That's one of my favorite hooks ever. And that gave him the spotlight even more, because it was such a big album at the time, especially. And after listening to those two features, I was so excited to listen to what he was going to drop. And when he did drop Channel Orange, that album was just so amazing, man. I literally did not stop playing that album when I was in high school. I would listen to that album every day, all day. Like I couldn't stop listening for like a month straight. I remember not being able to stop listening to the album. And in that album, I feel like, he showcases his how talented he is as a songwriter, and the production as well on the album is, next level, especially like in tracks like Pyramids, where the beat switches. Oh man, yeah, I remember listening to that beat switch for the first time. I was blown away. Like I I couldn't stop listening to that song, especially Pyramids has to be like my favorite song of the album. And he has great features as well, like Andre 3000 and Pink Matter. He has other great classic songs, obviously Thinking About You, Super Rich Kids with Earl. Earl killed that verse as well. He bodied that verse. Um, Sierra Leone. And yeah, the just that whole album, man, is truly a classic album, especially in the R&B genre. And man, yo, after Channel Orange, we did not hear from Frank Ocean for so long. Like everybody was waiting for his music, man. We were all waiting for it. He just didn't drop anything. People like were so frustrated with him, and so was I. But then I remember he dropped before dropping Blonde. He dropped the album, which is like a long video. And one of my favorite tracks from that album is that cover he does from the Isley Brothers, At Your Best. And it showcased how talented of the singer this man really is. Like the way he bodied that cover really impresses me, and I still listen to that track till this day. And after dropping that video album, he came back and immediately dropped Blonde. And when he dropped Blonde, I'm not even gonna lie, I wasn't the biggest fan of the album. I feel like I was expecting something completely different. Channel Orange was so impactful to me because of the production. I love the production a lot in the album. So when he dropped Blonde, I was kind of expecting a similar production, but it was completely different. And at first I didn't like it, but I gave it more time, kept listening to it, and I really grew to love that album, and I started listening to a lot more. And man, what I appreciate about that album is, he took a completely whole different approach, where I feel like the album was a lot more emotional, a lot more intimate. You know, and although like the album sounds completely different, I feel like what Frank Ocean does really well is he showed how much he improved as a writer, throughout the time where he didn't drop any music. He improved as a writer in that album. He showcased a lot of, wordplay, metaphors, the imagery in a lot of those tracks. The writing in the album is so impressive, honestly. It just blows me away how amazing of a writer he is. Man, and tracks like, Nike, Pink Plus White, Nights, Godspeed. There's so many amazing tracks in that album. And what I did like about the album a lot was how he did the beat switch again with Nights, and I love that beat switch so much. So I was a huge fan, and that album is honestly one of my favorite albums as well. So just with those two albums, I feel like he has to be top 3 or top 2. Frank Ocean is just so talented. He can sing his ass off, and he's an amazing writer. I think he's probably the best R&B writer, out right now, and one of the best writers ever. So Frank Ocean at number 2. Number 3, man, this one is one of my favorite artists ever. I just love number 3 so much, man. This man music is special to me. It's really special to me. And number 3 is BJ the Chicago Kid. Man, BJ, man, he's just so talented when it comes to singing, man. I remember listening to BJ, in Kendrick's album Section 80, in the track Kush and Corinthians. I remember I love Kendrick verses, but when BJ came in to wrap up that song, man, I was so blown away, because how passionate of a singer he was. Like I feel like when I would listen to him for the first time, I can hear and I can feel the pain in his voice, and the pain he's been through, and that's what I really love about BJ. That verse he had on Christian Corinthians really blew me away. And ever since then, I was always looking forward to listening to BJ. And I remember when he dropped Pineapple Now Later. When I listened to the album, I remember like just listening right off the bat, like this man's music is my type of R&B. Tracks like Good Lovin', where he has like a very groovy bass line. Sex is the best breakfast. His Pain, obviously, with Kendrick Lamar, man, those two have something special. Every collab they do is amazing, honestly. And yeah, man, I'm just so impressed with how he always sings his heart out in every track he does, man. And especially like His Pain with Kendrick, man. Like the piano in that song, Kendrick rapping in the beginning, and then when BJ comes in, the boom bap comes in, man. It's just such an amazing track. And one thing about BJ, I feel like this man literally makes the best baby making music there is, man. I feel like he really just does. After listening to Pineapple Now Later, I was excited to hear his next project. And I remember when he dropped In My Mind, one of the singles he released was Church. And prior to dropping the album, and I love that track, that single. And it made me really excited for his album. When his album came, man, this man really does an outstanding job of expressing so many different emotions and just kind of giving the fan an overview of what he's been through his life, his thoughts, his emotions. In tracks like Falling on My Face, Love Inside, The Resume with Big Crit, just so many great tracks. And then he actually has another track with Kendrick, The New Cupid. And BJ does, like the other two artists, he does a great job, mixing the old R&B with the new R&B. And it's crazy because he actually does, his own little twist to, James Brown legendary song, This Is a Man's World, and it's actually called Woman's World. So I like his own little twist to that song. And I just love it. Like he really does a great job expressing who he is as a person and as an artist in his music. And that's why I really love BJ the Chicago Kid, man. He's incredibly talented. One of my favorite singers. I just enjoy listening to him sing. Number four, he's ever since I discovered this man, he's been one of my favorite artists in general, whether it's hip hop, R&B. This man is so talented and his music is just so great and it's so different compared to these other artists that I've mentioned. And his name is Sir from TDE from Inglewood, California. Man, Sir is just on another level when it comes to R&B, in my opinion. And I remember when TDE first signed Sir, man, I was excited to listen to this man because it was another R&B artist that they added to their roster, and he dropped Her EP. And I remember prior to making his debut with TDE, he had that Her EP where I was so amazed with the production of the EP and how so well put together it was. Every track of that EP was outstanding, and I just enjoyed Sir's voice and those crazy production. I feel like his production is very unique. It's not your typical, production when it comes to R&B, and that's why I really enjoyed it. And another thing that blew me away as well was his, songwriting ability. Hearing what he had to say in a lot of these tracks, like Tricky, All in My Head. I was so amazed that I had to look back to see if he had any previous music, prior to being with TD, and I did. He has 7 Sundays, which has so many hidden gems in that album, man. The writing is outstanding in that album, which he reminded me of a young Frank Ocean, when it comes to being able to write such great tracks, especially like The Bullet in the Gun. How he's using that metaphor, to explain his relationship at the time. And Sir's production is really what got my attention, because I feel like his production just puts you in a whole completely different space, a whole completely different type of time. And listening to how well of a singer he is, it just all meshes well, so amazing. And yeah, yo, Sir just has so much great music out there. Like his most recent Chasing Summers, I know that's been giving him a lot of attention, which he deserves. That album has a lot of great writing as well, like especially in the song New Sky, The Recipe, Touchdown, Fire. This man is just such a young, talented artist. He hasn't been in the game so long, but I feel like he's really gonna blow up as an R&B artist. And his production, the production he chooses in a lot of his music, is very different from any R&B artist, and I appreciate that about him. And yeah, man, Sir, he also mixes the old school with the new school. He actually recently made a cover to the Isley Brothers, famous song, Footsteps in the Dark, where he kills that cover, man. I just love artists that really, pay respect to legends in the game. So I love Sir, man. Keep up the great work. Number 5, I had to put him in here because this man is talented, and the amount of great tracks he's put out, and his features have been outstanding for so many years now. Miguel, I feel like he deserves to be top 5 in my list. Yeah, Miguel, man. Miguel, I remember listening to him on Wale's Lotus Flower Bomb, and I just love how he killed that hook. The singing in that hook just blew me away. And then also listening to him in All I Want Is You with J. Cole, I appreciated how he had that hip hop influence with R&B. Just flowing over that track. I love that track as well. And Miguel, I just love his production as well. I like how he had a lot of hip hop influences in some of his songs as well. And especially in All I Want Is You, he has a lot of standout tracks like Sure Thing, which was a banger, Vixen, Quickie. His music is, I'd say it's definitely very sexual, and it was something I feel like R&B was missing at the time he was coming into the game. But when he dropped Kaleidoscope Dream, I became a huge fan of his because I feel like he, compared to All I Want Is You, I feel like his writing improved drastically in Kaleidoscope Dream. I feel like rather than just making tracks with straightforward, just keeping it straightforward about sex. He gets creative, offering different perspectives to, romance and relationships. So I really appreciate that. And Kaleidoscope Dream, I feel like is just a very diverse album where he mixes hip hop, rock and R&B. He mixes it all so well. And also, Miguel, he mixes old R&B with the new, and that banger he has in that album Adorn, I feel like he pays tribute to Marvin Gaye's sexual healing song. I just love artists that show respect to other legends. And ever since Kaleidoscope Dream, he's dropped a lot of great tracks. I know he dropped Wild Heart, and it had some great songs as well, like Coffee, Waves, Simple Things. Then in War and Leisure, it has some amazing songs like Anointed. He's just been consistently dropping great quality music, and he's been killing it in hooks as well, like Power Trip. Like Miguel is just so talented when it comes to singing, and I feel like he's just very unique too. When it comes to production of his music, so he's never afraid to try different things when it comes to production and just making music in general. And that's why I feel like Miguel, he's been a great influence for the genre of R&B, and I gotta put him at number 5. And yeah, man, that's my top 5. Anderson .Paak, Frank Ocean, BJ the Chicago Kid, Sir, and Miguel. Those are my top 5 from the past decade. Let me know what you think. It was tough making this list. I'll make some honorable mentions that were so close to making the list, but I feel like they just haven't I haven't been listening to them as long as these other artists. I'd say Masego and Leon Bridges, two incredibly talented artists that I really enjoyed. I love their music so much, especially Leon Bridges. I love the way his music reminds me of like 60s, 50s R&B, very very old school, and I love that about him. So yeah, those are my top 5, and Masego and Leon Bridges. I'm sorry you guys didn't make the list, but man, and another one you guys definitely will for sure. So let me know what are your top 5, male R&B artists of the decade. I'm gonna be doing a female one because that one is very difficult for me as well. So be on the lookout for that. Please like, subscribe, comment. Let me know what you guys want to see next.